Yeah, I want to go over this story. Actually, I saw at the news unit. Believe it or not, he's turning into a gold bug. I don't know if he's. Well, I know this frustration of gold and silver the last couple of years. Hey, it looks like the toilet paper is a better thing to hold than if you bought gold at 1921 or you bought silver at 48. You're in for a long wait still, probably. Who knows? But this is something else that comes up, and it shows some of the principles of the gold bugs are correct. And I got this off the news unit. Some people in the silver community think he's a heretic or something, but I don't know. Anyway, it has to do with the Dutch bank, the largest Dutch bank, ABN AMRO, and they sent a letter to the clients stating that they will no longer be able to take physical deliveries of the gold they have bought through ABN. The clients can't get gold, the real stuff, through the bank, the largest bank in the largest Dutch bank, right? So, what's going on here is basically like what people have been saying all along. There isn't enough gold to go around, physical gold. A lot of the investment gold is actually just purely paper, and this is kind of proving it. But, the one thing they always say is, like, if you don't hold it, you don't actually own it. And actually, I could tell you this. Remember, I was given, I don't want to make it sound like I kind of know some stuff, but basically, I have seen people, well, some of it, and they all have big bucks, and they have it physically. They don't, when somebody's worth like even $2 million, that's not super rich or nothing like that. Actually, it's a lot of money, but it's not, that's not, definitely not the elite. But say somebody's worth $2 million, a lot of it's not just cash, it's not cash, it's in all kinds of real assets. So, anyway, but it has to do with you want to actually hold it. Now, I know the problem with gold is it's too damn much money for like the average person. That's why they buy silver. But silver's getting killed. But I've been harping on, even for the last year, more than a year, was buying physical nickels. Here's some of them. I don't have like a gazillion of them. I keep forgetting to buy them, but physical nickels right here. Because the actual content of this nickel, you can't melt them down. You can't melt them down. It's actually 75% copper, 25% nickel. At one point in time when the commodities were pretty high, these were about, the actual just content was about 11% higher than with the nickel, the 5 cents. It was actually 11% higher, just metal content, but it actually cost the U.S. government 11 cents to mint a nickel. So what's going to happen is eventually, if the commodities kept running up, they were actually proposing in 2012, actually this is a couple of years ago, they were proposing in 2012 to actually stop producing this type of nickel. They're going to change it if the commodities keep running up. So this is almost like the early buying opportunity when people used to have the silver. And I remember back in, I was young then, very young, but I remember like people like were actually keeping the other silver, it's 64 silver, and when 65 they had the copper clad stuff. A lot of people were kind of holding the other stuff before, right? The real silver. Then after a while they got used to it because it didn't go up that much in value. But actually, if you held on to it, man, he'd be up 30 times. But this would be something to hold long term. The nickels. So if you can't even afford silver, and you say stick with fiat, get these fiat nickels. They're not exactly fiat because the actual metal in it is worth as much. It's even worth more than 5 cents. It depends on the commodity rate. Sometimes it's like down to like, it's actually a little lower. It could be 97% up to 111% at the best times. But the actual content is actually worth, what the nickel is. And, when you buy copper bullion, I see that as a complete ripoff. But anyway, it goes like it says, there's another line in this article I thought was interesting. It says, like the folly of betting against the stock markets when the Fed is pumping up equities with 85 billion of QE every month, or it's almost like, it's like the silver people are trying to bet, the silver bulls are trying to bet against J.P. Morgan's short machine in the futures market. And there probably is. I would notice for a fact. I think a lot of these people in the silver gold crowd, even the most famous ones, are I don't know, they're just drama freaks. But there probably is something about, J.P. Morgan in coordination with the federal government shorting silver to suppress the price. I really don't. There really is no good proof out there, but using a little common sense, it makes a lot of sense why they would do it, because people would lose faith in the dollar and they would hoard silver, and they'd look at the dollar as a hunk of paper, and the things would fall apart. It's the fact that people have faith in that currency is why it continues. Psychology has a lot to do with anything. You could think of the dollar as like stocks or anything else. Psychology, or even when you physically own an asset. When somebody says, I think my house, like we can use the dollar price, my house is worth $200,000, yet there's vehicles on sale for half price or something, and you're still holding on to the house because you think it's worth that much. It's all psychology. Sometimes when people think something's worth a lot, they pay a lot. And that's why the dollar's being held right now. People think it's a safety. It's definitely not. It's definitely not. And actually, if you're contrarian a little bit, you realize that's right now the dollar's like almost like every other thing out there that people used to think is safety. The majority always gets it wrong. So it's not gonna go to oblivion like in Germany though, like in the 20s, but it's gonna go down. But this is an interesting article that the news unit put out. He didn't put it out, but he just drew attention to it. It was actually, I'll post a link where it was, and or you can look at the news unit and go from there. Probably a better way to do it. And basically, it's the largest Dutch bank is actually stating they're not going to do any more physical deliveries for the gold that people are holding in the bank. That's ABN AMRO, biggest Dutch bank. So basically, if you don't own it physically, and you have a piece of paper that says you own it physically, that doesn't mean nothing, because they'll screw you. And I'm going to say this again, there's, I don't like ever, because no matter what, how much money you have or how little money you have, there's always these like ego things. And man, you start thinking like that, you make rash moves. If you don't have enough money for silver, buy nickels. These are worth a nickel. And just hold on to it. Maybe it might take a couple years, a few years. I'm going to even say this. You remember? It sounds kind of crazy, but this is like just a off tangent type thing. But you remember those American dollars that came out, the gold dollars? They're not the gold. They're gold colored, and it had the Indian woman on them. Nobody wanted them. They're worth several times as much money today if you actually save rolls of those things. So I don't know, maybe nickels might be worth some bucks a few years from now if they started changing the mix. Just like with the copper, the old copper pennies, it took a long time, but they're up 300%. So there always is a way to invest in some kind of real tangible assets in minor ways. And when you do this, you're not even thinking about it. These are $2, right? So you just do $2 at a time. You don't even have to buy a coin. You don't have to pay any shipping. There's no spot, over spot, under spot. And it's actually a cheaper way to invest in copper. So I'll get on some other subjects, but this is very interesting because it's showing they're not doing physical deliveries of gold. And this was on a news unit, so he's not actually, you definitely wouldn't call him a silver gold pumper, but if he's putting this out, or he's just showing a link to it, that's quite obvious that, hey, this is rational thinking. They're not delivering the gold, they only got paper. So, supply and demand. And I don't know if you could break the J.P. Morgan shorting machine. I don't know. But eventually it is going to break. Because it's quite obvious that a lot of countries are accumulating a lot more gold. Like Russia has more gold than they say. China has more gold than they say. India has more gold than they say. Those are official numbers. But I'll tell you this. Just knowing how the demons in the United States think, they got more gold than they say too. But that just proves one little point. The smart money is actually accumulating gold right now, and most people can't afford it anyway, even at these prices. So I'll tell you, you can't literally lose on this, nickels, but, it's not as good as silver or anything. But if you decide, you want to make a little $10 investment here, $4, I was getting these for a while. I forgot about getting them, but I got piles of them. The only problem is I stopped getting them is because they take up a lot of room and they weigh a ton. But still, not a bad deal, not a smart, not a stupid thing to do. I think it's a smart thing to do. So, if you don't own it physically, you don't own it. And nickels is a thing that actually proves that anybody can invest in physical assets that's tangible, that's real.